Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday, the 6th of April, and the start of week 3 of the lockdown. I hope you've all had a really great and restful weekend. I know I certainly have. I've completely switched off from work. I've repainted my she shed in the garden. I've been doing loads of work in the greenhouse and really feel like I've had a great weekend. We had a Zoom quiz with some friends and a Zoom game of a dice game that we play. So yeah, good restful weekend. Actually feeling ready to start again this morning. I don't know if you've been reading the papers over the weekend, but certainly if you've been reading the business press, there's a lot of articles by a lot of economists over what the depth of the recession is going to be. And I'm not going to go into the figures that they're quoting because if you go there, they're pretty depressing. But here's the thing, we've got to remember there are winners and losers in every economy. And there are industries that are doing really well right now, and there are industries that are on their feet, on the floor, and there are people who have no income at all at the minute, and that is really tough. But we've got to remember that regardless of the industry you're in and regardless of your current circumstances, excuse me, your mindset is the most important thing that's going to get you through this. What you choose to believe right now is so important because it is a choice, what we choose to believe. If you believe it's going to be terrible and we're going to be in terrible recession and things are going to be awful, your subconscious mind is very clever. It chooses to focus on whatever you believe is true. It doesn't judge you. If you think that's what you believe, it'll look for evidence everywhere as to why you're right. So if you think it's going to be terrible, your subconscious mind will find evidence everywhere of just how terrible it is. If you choose to believe we can find the best out of this and we can innovate and we can make changes, then trust me, your subconscious mind will find those ways because that is how the mind works. It's quite incredible. Now, I know last week a lot of people were still very caught up in the messy stuff involving furloughing staff and crisis and survival cash flow planning. But many had turned their mind as well to the future and what could be, how we get out of this. And there were some very interesting things that came out of talking to Angela Rhodes, who's our resident HR expert, on Friday afternoon. She just got off her call with one of the leading employment barristers in the UK. And there's a lot of tweaks coming out of furlough that I hadn't actually understood, and you may not too. One of the most surprising thing is that you can actually now rotate people on furlough. So you can put people on for 3 weeks. If you get some work in, you can bring them back in for a week and then you can re-furlough someone. And you can rotate your staff on furlough so that no sort of one or few people are being put on furlough while others are kept back. We've got some really interesting stuff on the Facebook group around that, and I think I'll pull together those key facts and put them in a document so that we're kind of keeping a running tally of what the latest on furlough is, because there's a lot of conflicting advice out there, as with all of this stuff at the moment. Another big issue that came out was people start holidays. If you've got holidays booked right now, clearly you can't go on holiday. So what are employers doing around that? Especially if the people are on furlough. So again, that is an evolving picture, and even the leading guy in the country is still saying to a lot of these questions he just doesn't know yet. There are too many unknown, but we have kind of got a hotline straight into him now, and we'll bring you that information as we know it. And this whole issue of our government going to support the business owners who've fallen through the gaps. There was actually a question by a journalist on the Saturday government briefing. What was really interesting is that Gove didn't shut the question down, and they've been quite good about shutting down things they're not going to help with. And also on the Chancellor's Q&A on Twitter on Friday afternoon, he studiously avoided all of the questions I know have been submitted around this area. Now, it could be that they're just not going to do anything and they're avoiding the question. But they did say when they answered the question on Saturday in the briefing that they were constantly reviewing their support package. Don't know what this means, of course. It may lead to nothing, but the same rules apply as I've been saying all last week. You must assume there's nothing coming if you've fallen through the gap. Anything that does come will be a great bonus. So please keep planning for nothing. And when we're thinking about these things, it'd be so easy to get caught up in the drama and being a victim of it all. But the problem is that shuts down the creative part of your brain that will find the ways out of this. So you can choose to be that, or you can choose to be part of the answer. And if we all pull together, that's what we can do. Now, some practicalities for this week, then what can you actually focus on that's constructive and positive? Certainly, liquidity and cash flow are going to be the most important things for any business for the next few years. And I bang on about buffer cash a lot, as anyone who knows me will know. Buffer cash and liquidity are going to be everything, probably forever now, and in my mind always have been. And I talked about winners and losers in different industries. You've got an industry now who's being decimated by what's going on, but you've got two very different responses. If you look at the airline industry, no question it's in a terrible place. But you've got Virgin, who are absolutely mortgaged to the hilt and have no cash, who are in terrible trouble asking for a bailout. And Ryanair, love them or hate them, they run a profitable business and they've got a ton of cash in the bank. So they know they're going to be fine. And that's a massive difference going forward. So you really should have your survival cash flow plan in place by now. If you haven't, you've got to get that done. You really have, because getting the facts down on a spreadsheet changes everything. It takes all the fear out of your head and it gives you a concrete action plan to work on. But here's the thing, just because you've got your action plan doesn't mean you're done. You now need to keep this cash flow updated every day, every few days, every week. You must not let that cash flow plan drop. That's going to be your best friend and your way through this. And the other thing is, what can you focus on in a really constructive way that you could achieve this week? What would be positive? What are some actions you could take? What's a project you'd really love to work on? Something you'd like to learn? So a pivot you've maybe got on your mind, some innovation that's going to help you move out of this. It would be great if this week we could move out of crisis and let's move into being constructive. Let's move into starting to rebuild the future. I don't think it's too early to talk about that. And I think 3 weeks in, it's time to get out of crisis and start moving on. And be very careful. I've said this on Friday, I think, be careful what you're letting into your mind. If the news is depressing you, stop watching it. If Facebook and social media are annoying you, stop reading them. Apart from our group, I haven't been on proper Facebook for weeks. And from what I hear of it, it would only really annoy me. So I'm going to choose not to let that stuff into my mind. And yeah, just stay positive. Find things to be grateful for this week. Find things you can be positive about and find things you can really focus on to be constructive. That's it for now. Loads of new stuff to follow on the group, as always, during the day. Any news we get, of course, will be there. And have a great Monday. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.